I thought I'd spend just a couple of minutes discussing the inherent tension in the subject of business ethics. Now, I consider business ethics a subset of ethics, and ethics is a category of philosophical inquiry. Ethics is that category of philosophical inquiry that thinks carefully about what we should do, how we should act. That is morality. Let's not avoid that word, morality. Thus, we speak of Kant's ethical theory, or Peter Singer's, or John Stuart Mill's. These are philosophical approaches to morality. So, with that definition in mind, let's talk about that subset of ethical theory we call business ethics. Now, there's this significant tension in teaching business ethics. That is, how can we act morally within a capitalist system? A system that many would say is, at bottom, immoral. After all, it was a version of capitalist talk that said greed is good. And it's capitalist economic theory that assumes that all rational persons are engaged in maximizing the satisfaction of their own self-interest. But there's very few ethical theories, in fact, well, none actually, that are predicated on the view that selfishness is a virtue. Now, this has always been the challenge of business ethics, which is exacerbated by the fact that most of those who teach the subject will not accept the statement that capitalism is at best a morally questionable enterprise. The biggest problem is that students themselves have internalized the capitalist logic, or at least feel like they have to act like they have whenever they're in any course where the word business is used. This has been highlighted for me in the most recent version of a business ethics class that I have taught, in which one assignment requires students to invent an ethical dilemma in business and then discuss it. Now, I did not come up with this assignment for sure, and it's really tough. I know it's tough. But over and over and over again, I tell students, look, an ethical dilemma is a hard choice between two options. Both have legitimate arguments, legitimate moral arguments in their favor, but neither seems ideal. To put it another way, a dilemma is where you're caught between a rock and a hard place. Both the rock and the hard place are choices for which there are arguments based on a view of what would be the morally correct thing to do, and also arguments against based on what is right and wrong, what is moral. But this is what they come up with over and over again. Something like this: X has a hard choice. On the one hand, X could do the morally correct thing, like truth about an unsafe product, or pull that unsafe product off the market, which will cost them money. Or the other choice, make the money and ignore telling the truth. Something like that. They come up with that over and over again. And I say, that's not a dilemma. There is no argument grounded in morality for the bad choice. Keeping the unsafe product on the market or not telling the truth. And over again, they don't get it because they've had it drilled in that making money is a moral imperative. They have all bought into the notion that magically and automatically, somehow, chasing your own profit necessarily leads to a social good. They think the fact that it makes a profit is an argument that carries moral weight, not, practical weight like, I like money, but moral weight. But look, greed is not good. Selfishness is not a virtue. Now, worse, most business ethics texts try to avoid this problem by essentially justifying being ethical with a totally unproven factual assertion. They assert that being ethical will in the long run work in your business's self-interest because it's good for your reputation and people will trust you. And thus you will make more money in the long run. On the other hand, in the long run, being unethical will hurt your reputation and thus your profits. Now, maybe true, maybe not true. It's certainly a factual claim, and there's very little effort to establish that empirically. But is the only reason to be a good person that it makes you rich? Is the only reason to act morally a selfish reason? I don't think so. And I don't think an economic system that mandates that sort of thinking is a moral one. If it is not moral, is it still somehow sadly necessary, the only game possible, the only one we can have moral warts and all? Again, I don't think so, but that is a different topic and a much longer discussion to be had somewhere else. I just wanted to highlight here that one basic problem. How do you teach being moral in the marketplace? Well, people start out with the assumption that morality has no place in the marketplace, or they start out with the assumption that what we normally consider to be immoral is perfectly okay. All right, thank you.